Okay, so today we'll talk about two architects born on the same day, Antonio Santeglia and Hans Poelzig, an Italian and a German, both born on the 30th of April. So let's read a little bit about him. The truth is, the text I found on Wikipedia is a little bit strange. I don't know why. Maybe it was translated from the German, but anyway, I'll read a little bit about him. So Hans Poelzig, born, as you see, April 30th, 1869. He was older than Le Corbusier, about almost 20 years older, was a German architect, painter, and set designer. But the strange things show up now. Poelzig was born in Berlin in 1869 to Countess Clara and Henrietta Maria Poelzig, daughter of Alexander von Hanstein. I don't know who he is, Count of Poelzig. And anyway, he was an aristocrat, while she was married to George Ackland Ames, an Englishman. Uncertain of his paternity, Ames refused to acknowledge Hans as his son, and consequently he was brought up by a local choir master and his wife. In 1899, he married Maria Voss, with whom they had 4 children. I guess this is Hans Poelzig had 4 children. Hans Poelzig was buried in the old cemetery in Berlin, Wannsee. Anyway, in my opinion, a very important creator in architecture, and he should know, she should be known more than he is. Here he is, the man whose father is, a little bit in the fog of uncertainty. He does look a little bit like a man whose father is a little bit in the fog of uncertainty. An interesting man, and I admire Hans Poelzig for his drawings, for his stage designs, for his expressionistic outbursts, and even for his social concerns. He was not just a capricious, flamboyant expressionist. He also had very deep social concerns, and he built blocks of flats. Also, besides having, so-called visions. So, Hans Poelzig, some drawings, sorry, I wrote in Romanian here. I prepared this presentation a few years ago when I was talking to a Romanian audience physically, and now it's different. We have foreigners here, like yesterday we had an architect from Indonesia. The drawings of Hans Poelzig are certainly very, very good. And, in the field of architectural rendering by, manual drawing, I think he can be valued highly. I don't know if actually he did this. This was, it's a column of a theater he built or rebuilt because it was a prior existing building. We are going to arrive at it, and it's spectacular. But these drawings in, with maybe charcoal or pencil, they are excellent. And even such a sketch, it has a spirit, it has character. With a few strokes, he was able to evoke something. So the drawings of Hans Poelzig are an important part of the collection of expressionist drawings. The expressionists in general drew well, and the drawings of expressionists are forceful, maybe more than some other architects who belong to other, let's say, movements or currents and so on. This is a proposal for it was not built, but you can imagine, if it was built, it would have been the talk of the world. Even this one, this rendering is done freehand with pencil, and it has emotion in it. It's not like the commercial renderings of today, where employing all kinds of softwares or techniques, you make something that sells well. This is a drawing which has artistic value because it has emotion in it. And maybe it would have had a good effect on a possible client as well. But you can tell this is a drawing done by the architect with his own hand, and it has artistic value, not just representational. It's not just a cold-blooded so-called representation. It's not, and it's not a commercial drawing, nor this one. Those people at that time, they drew manually, and if you were able to draw, unless you were Walter Gropius and you worked with someone who was able to draw because he couldn't, and this didn't mean he was not a good architect. It's possible to be a good architect even if you do not draw well. And Walter Gropius is a case that proves it. But as opposed to Walter Gropius, Hans Scharoun, as you can see, was quite able to draw. And of course, there is a difference between these sketches and the more elaborate representation of the building that he imagined. He built some remarkable towers, actually. Well, they are, utilitarian structures, but they could function like incredible cathedrals or temples. We are going to see them. But look at this drawing of trees. It shows clearly a sensitive man, someone who was not only obsessed by the wall of architecture, but who loved nature. And even in the drawings with buildings like here, which he imagined, you can still see somehow, the vibration, the movement of the life, actually, of nature. Now we start with this sulfuric acid factory in Lubon, Poland, from 1911, 1912. Look at this, this is, in my opinion, it's an impressive building. Yes, maybe these openings here are a little bit predictable because of their arches, but no one can deny the monumentality, the presence of this building. And you'll see some even more impressive, like this one. Maybe it's the same building seen from the other side. It probably is. Let's read again. What is it? A sulfuric acid factory. Well, I guess for that particular acid is the appropriate architectural expression, because sulfur is burning, is in a way an expressionistic acid, if I am to call it so. But this is not a typical factory, as you can see. It's architecturally, in my opinion, is quite impressive. Imagine something like this being built today. Anyway, fumes. So this was built in Poland. Now we look at the Kino Babylon in Berlin, cinema, 1927, 1929. This building still exists. And I think he built also the apartment building, not just the cinema within the building. I'm not sure about the message, on that screen. Eden is west. Anyway, let's hope Vladimir Putin doesn't think the same way and moves further west to arrive in Eden. Maybe Glenn will tell me how to pronounce correctly, Eden or Eden, if he's still here. Anyway, the cinema within that block of flats, Babylon. and Jack Nicholson right there for all to see in that film by Milos Forman. Milos Forman, an excellent director from the Czech Republic, I think. But he did a movie in Hollywood. Now, a department store in Wrocław, 1912, it still stands. A department store, Hans Poelzig. Not bad. I mean, you know, Eric Mendelssohn also did some department stores kind of in the same spirit, but there is a difference. I think Hans Poelzig has a certain tension in his buildings that perhaps, although Eric Mendelssohn himself was an expressionist, especially in the Einstein Tower, and not only. There is complexity. This architect Hans Poelzig was a complex architect, an artist. I don't have here pictures of his paintings. I read that he also painted, but you know, you saw the drawings. This man did have an artistic you know, nature, and you'll see it even more explicitly in his stage designs, because he designed for the film and for the theater, for this very famous German film, expressionist film, Der Golem. He designed a funambulesque, you know, stage design is amazing. I think he designed even the costumes. So here we see the design of mystical film architecture, Hans Poelzig. I mean, you know, it's enough to look at the poster to get a feeling about, and look at the architecture, the stage design that well, the architecture he built for this film. It's Gothic. It's Gothic through and through. And this man who you know lived in the 20th century as well for a good number of years. So what? He was a modern architect, modern you know, intellectual and artist. He had Gothic longings. But not like the Victorian architects or many architects in Great Britain in the 19th century. This is an anxious Gothicism. There is anxiety here. Look at this interior. You know, it's some kind of an architectural womb. You know, Gothic. I mean, it shows a great ability to evoke the darker side of life in a way, and you know, the mysteries of the soul, and you know, mystical things, and you know, some anxiety which you know related to the subject matter of the film. You see here, the Golem is a monster, you know, and I like this fact that an architect, you know, also does stage design and painting and writes and draws, and, you know, a cultural figure, someone engaged with his time, with society, not like the many robots, you know, working for all kinds of banal offices and just producing significant architecture. Now, the watercolors of Hans Poelzig, water towers, sorry, not watercolors, are amazing. I mean, this is a water tower, but look at this. You know, it could have been anything, you know, the Institute of Spatial Research, or the Institute of Psychoanalysis, or the Institute of, you know, Fright Nights, or the Institute of, I don't know, turbulences, or the Institute of Psychic Disorders, or the Institute of War, or it could have been many things. Instead, it's a water tower for God's sake. You know, I don't even know if it functions as, or if it ever functioned as a water tower. He built all of these things. You know, they, I mean, if an architect would build just these water towers that Hans Poelzig built, would feel accomplished. But he built many other things, and we are going to see some of them. A remarkable architect, and strangely, you know, not too many people know of him, at least in my country. Another water tower in Poznan, this one, yeah, look at this. You know, I mean, this is architecture. It is a watercolor, but yeah, it could have been some kind of another Goetheanum, or you know, another, maybe some kind of anthroposophic architecture. It's a water tower. You know, does it have force? Yes, it does. Could it be accused of masculinism? No, I don't think so necessarily, although it has, you know, stands up, you know, resolutely. It's an interesting building, and you will see a picture from the inside. Very, very interesting. Hans Poelzig. Look at this. You know, I mean, this is some kind of a rendering, but I'm not sure exactly what this was made for and how it was made. There is another one. Yeah, here. This one I love. This one I completely love. I would love to, you know, to refuse to exit life before I build something similar. I think is excellent. You know, it's sculptural, it's dynamic, it has everything. It has structure, it has the ornament of a wild structure, it has everything. A water tower. Anyway, and here we see, like in the manner of Andrea Palladio, half section, half elevation. Hans Poelzig in Poznan. Okay, now Four Domes Pavilion in Wrocław, also in Poland. This one, I don't know. It was refurbished, I guess, cleaned up. Is a little bit, for my taste, a little bit static and, you know, so-called almost classic. I don't see any Gothicism here, but it's still a noble architecture. It has dignity, and maybe a little bit too much. It's not as adventurous as the previous building, or maybe it appears so because it was refurbished. You know, it's a museum now. I don't know what it was initially. It's okay, I guess. And it is by this very prolific and interesting architect, Hans Poelzig. He was not the only one. The Germans had very interesting architects, you know, with all kinds of activities. You know, I was talking the other day when we read the manifesto of Bruno Taut. Bruno Taut also a very interesting architect, and there are others. Anyway. This is in Poland, as I said. Now in Istanbul, talking about about Bruno Taut, because the last years of Bruno Taut's life also happened in Istanbul, because he received a professorship there, and he left Japan, but he was German through and through. So this is the House of Friendship from 1916 in Istanbul, a project. It was not built, but remarkable. I mean, the house, this is the House of Giant Friendship, you know, the World Temple of Friendship. Maybe Putin should build it instead of waging war against Ukraine. the president of the United Nations was right. War in the 21st century is an aberration. It was always a tragedy, but somehow, after the Second World War, the Russians, who lost millions and millions of people, they started themselves another deadly war. It's just incredible. And even more incredible is that the Russians actually support, misinformed as they are. But could they be so disinformed that they don't know? It's clear that Russia invaded Ukraine and not the other way around. And how could Ukraine be, a Nazi nation when they have a Jewish president? It's ridiculous. And all those Russians do not think. And we talk about the house of friendship. What friendship? You think Putin never went to museums or never read some books or never met, many artists and defenders of peace and so on. And look, he learned nothing. And he's not the only one who would wage war anytime. A good building like this one by Hans Poelzig. I'm sorry it was not built, but anyway, he made a project. That's why I keep telling the students, even if you don't build, but no one can stop you from making projects. Take a pencil, take some paper, or draw digitally. Express yourself. As Stephen Hall said, if you have idealism in you, take it out, express it. Now, this is his most, I almost said outrageous work. Is the most interesting visually, and it's a very, very sad thing that it was demolished. And it was demolished in 1988. So it survived the Second World War, and it was destroyed just 1 year before the reunification of Germany. It's just so sad. So let's read a little bit about it, because it is a remarkable work. The Grosses Schauspielhaus, the Great Theater, was a theater in Berlin, Germany, often described as an example of expressionist architecture designed by Hans Poelzig for the theater impresario Max Reinhardt, a great, and I recommend to the people here, I suggest, if you do not know it, Peter Eisenman did an interesting tower for Max Reinhardt, which unfortunately was not built, but in my opinion, one of the most interesting and also the most frightening somehow, at least for some people, projects by Peter Eisenman, dedicated to Max Reinhardt. So the structure was originally a market built by architect Friedrich Hitzig, and it retained its external gabled form. It then became the Circus Schumann, a circus arena. It was renovated by Poelzig and reopened in 1919, the very year when the Bauhaus started and was founded. Contained seating for 3,500 people. My God, my God. Max Reinhardt wanted to attract a working class audience. Isn't it beautiful? How many theater people, how many theaters or operas think of the working class people? Not many, but here was a very sophisticated, cultured and talented stage and even film director, Max Reinhardt, who wanted to attract a working class audience. And I love this because I think true intellectuals and true artists and true architects by necessity have at least affection for the underprivileged, and they should. And if they don't, they won't receive a lot of affection from me, but of course it doesn't matter a lot to them. Anyway, the large size of this theater allowed for people who could pay top prices for the best seats to support low cost seats in the back of the theater. painted red. My God, my God. I mean, you'll see it's very spectacular without any color. And in fact, I don't have color pictures of it because it was demolished in 1988. But the black and white ones will move you just as they are. So imagine it in red, painted red. It was a cavernous dome space and had no balconies, which contributed to its vastness. Its dome and the pillars were decorated with muqarnas, a honeycomb pendentive ornament which resembles stalactites. When illuminated, the ceiling's light bulbs formed patterns of celestial constellations, and the vaulted ceiling took on another concept, the night sky. In the lobby and elsewhere, Poelzig used colored light bulbs to create striking visual backdrops. I never saw colored pictures of it. I like to imagine that there are somewhere some colored pictures. This is the building that he received. He didn't build it, the gabled old market, but you'll see what he did inside. Look at it. It's an image of God's kingdom. It's celestial there at the top, and you see even more alarmingly audacious pictures. Towards the outside, okay, not so much. But the inside, the stalactites, are striking. And I couldn't find too many pictures, but I hope this convince you of the originality of this huge theater, because 3,500 people in one room. But it wasn't just the theater per se, even the spaces, around the theater, the waiting areas and so on. Look at them, they are very interesting. He invented also this column. You saw a drawing at the beginning. Look at this and try to imagine that it was red. It was probably magical. It was probably an unforgettable experience to attend the play. And if it was directed by Max Reinhardt, all for the better. Brilliance. Now we are talking about brilliance. We are talking about two brilliant people, Max Reinhardt and Hans Poelzig, or Hans Poelzig and Max Reinhardt. This is what you get when you have brilliance. You get a special work. I love this work, but it was demolished. I don't know why actually it was demolished, because it lasted for more than 40 years after the war. It's incredible. So it survived, for about almost 80 years. In 1919, it was like this. We already saw it. And in 1942, it was like this. 1942, the war. In 1972, here it is, still standing. This was in the democratic side of Berlin, I think. Now, in 1920, a festival theater for the Salzburg project. I think later on I have pictures with it during demolition. Not that I want to depress you, but I expected them to be here, maybe on a different presentation. Anyway, it was destroyed in 1988, but I think I have pictures later here in this presentation. Now, this is a project. Maybe I want to show that around that time. So that was that work was done in 1919, and in 1920 he did this project for Salzburg, also for a theater, a festival theater. And we are not surprised any longer, because we saw the interior. This is almost the carcass of that interior. I don't know if I express well. It's very similar to the interior, except is that we just saw of the Spielhaus in Berlin. But this one is towards the exterior. And it is, if it was built, it would have been amazing, without question. why is it that actually, often what is truly remarkable doesn't get built? But maybe that's a good thing. We save some oxygen. So this was imagined for Salzburg, and look at the interior as Hans Poelzig imagined it graphical. We feel now the expressionism of Hans Poelzig. Now, an office building in Hanover from 1924. I don't know if it still exists, but even if it's rectangular, I think it still has architectural character. And you see, he knew how to work with brick. So the brick, is employed sensitively in this building as well. It's what is its function? Office building. Yeah, it is an office building. I wouldn't deny it as an architecture, but maybe some I think is not as interesting as what we just saw. But personally, I like. I mean, look at these embroideries in brick. Yes, you can have a rectangular building, with regular windows, equal spacing between them. But with a brick, you can create interesting things. And that's because ornament is still a reality some of us should not forget about. And that's what he did here. Nobody asked him to play with these bricks in this way. But here it is creativity, it is artistry. The artist Hans Poelzig indulged in this exaltation in brick, if I am to call it so. Now, the Weissenhof estate. The Weissenhof estate is a very important colony of buildings built by important architects. 1926, 1927, Mies van der Rohe did I almost said the stage design. He did a master plan. He built a long collective housing there, Le Corbusier too, Hans Scharoun too. There were important architects, and Hans Poelzig was invited too. He did a modest single family 2-story home with a winter garden and the sun terrace at the Werkbund exhibition. If you go to Stuttgart, if the pandemic goes away, it's not too far away from the train station, and it's an important destination for lovers of architecture and students of architecture. Look, it's who's in the architecture of the time. Le Corbusier at the bottom. On the right, as we go here, there is the handsome Walter Gropius. Then Hilbersheimer. Then how many names do I read? You see Hans Poelzig on the right. And there are many important architects here, and they all built a building. Here we have Bruno Taut. Here we have Mies van der Rohe, Victor Bourgeois. I made presentations about most of these people. Oud, the Dutch JJP Oud architect, a very interesting enterprise. And Berlin also did this sort of thing 3 times. This is done in Stuttgart, but they understood. The Germans knew what they were doing. They created this colony, and it was a plus for the city, even in terms of cultural tourism. Later, and in Berlin they did it 3 times, in the 30s, in the 50s, and in the 80s. They invited important architects from all over the world to build, some housing. It's a good idea, and some other cities should try the same. Anyway, this is the building designed by Hans Scharoun, not Scharoun, sorry, Hans Poelzig. Yeah, you see, he was very versatile. the theaters that we looked at, the project for Salzburg and the theater built in Berlin. But look at the house now. Of course, you are not going to make a house like a theater, with stalactites and all the rest. Although, if Glenn is still here, yesterday we talked about Bart Prince. I'm not trying to say that Bart Prince built stalactites, but he is more exotic than Hans Poelzig. Hans Poelzig, again, would you think that this is the same architect who built that exotic theater for 3,500 people? No, but the drawings, the sketches, it's like he tried, he was sharpening the lead of his color pencils on the side. These studies for the interior of this house, are interesting. I like these drawings very much as artworks. How else am I to call them? But the house is, socially concerned. It's not an expensive house. Is again, if the theater was built for, low class citizens, this house was built also or imagined for, so-called common people, although it's not the smallest house if we look at the plan. But, again, it's not built for emperors or for presidents or for, Russian oligarchs. Plus, the Russian oligarchs don't like to live in buildings any longer. They rather live on huge yachts, which cost about 50 times more at least than a house like this one. I always wondered, they must be very bored, these oligarchs. What's the point of building a yacht which you use maybe a few times a year at the most and costs you $700 million? It's insane. Not to mention the many millions and billions of people who have nothing to eat in the world. It is an insane world. It's obvious. Hans Poelzig, interesting man, interesting drawings, interesting architect, interesting social worker, interesting stage designer. I like Hans Poelzig very much. And he even did, furniture design, as you can see. Now, a radio station in Charlottenburg, Berlin from 1929. When you see this radio station, you say it's probably a little building, maybe a room. It's huge. Look at it. It's a huge building. It's a citadel. It's a town, actually. It's a town. It's unbelievable. And I don't know if it still. I guess it still stands. Yes. This is the radio station. Now, why would the radio station need something like this? So huge? I don't know. But it depends what you understand by radio station. The radio, I guess, was a great invention, and it ruled the world at one point, even for Citizen Kane, together with the newspaper. If you had a radio station at your disposal, because of a love affair, because of a broken heart, essentially, because having a broken heart, having a radio station and newspaper doesn't help. Like Blaise Pascal said, the heart has its reasons, which reason does not know. Well, exactly. So you could have millions and billions and radio stations and newspapers and who knows what, and still collapse when you fall in love with someone who is indifferent towards you. You can die with all your newspaper and radio station. Anyway, it is a big building, if nothing else. And it's not bad, actually. The interior also has some, some interest here. Oh, Hans Poelzig was some kind of a magician, I think. I mean, imagine that this very man also did those Gothicist stage designs for Max Reinhardt, for Der Golem. But when you look closer, you know, from far away, you know, but you don't see details or the materials, the bricks, the ceramic tiles, but you'll see there are subtleties here which the sensitive soul of the architect, of the artist in the architect, played a role. So it's a good building, and I imagine it still functions very well. Look at it today in color. After so many black and white pictures, it's good to see some colored pictures. It's not bad. It's not bad, really. And of course, it was restored properly, so it looks fresh and brand new. Great radio station by Hans Poelzig. Great even with this kind of lighting. And you see, when we look at this, you would say, well, in the end, you know, he has straight corridors, handrails, and an atrium, a central atrium. What else is there? And yet, no one can deny the visual interest, even excitement of this space. And look at the facade. You know, this is a special picture, you know, looking obliquely, but you know, a building of that size could have ignored this kind of so-called details. And we are going to see that the brickwork is special, you know, it has various colors, these ceramic tiles. And by the way, ceramic tiles should be used again in architecture. I think the return, in fact, I feel like writing a manifesto, the return of the ceramic tile, because I think the ceramic tile has a great future. And it could mean a lot to architecture, and as it did in the past. After all, could we imagine Antoni Gaudi without ceramic tiles? Not to speak about the beautiful Islamic architecture. No way, you can't. Frank Lloyd Wright didn't have a lot of admiration for a lot of architecture besides his own, but he was in love with the blue domes of Persian architecture covered with ceramic tiles. Look at this modern staircase. Not bad. So he knew what he was doing, so to speak, Hans Poelzig. He did. He did, and this building, which appeared from far away as just a mega building, but without really anything interesting going on there, you can take countless interesting pictures with it. And look, of course, the Germans are they know how to take care of things. And you see, they are studying here, you know, which ceramic tile, the correct one, the proper one to bring to replace one that is damaged or something. I found this picture and I'm glad I found it. Now this one, the Farben building in Frankfurt, which became the Goethe University, which exists in Frankfurt. This one is huge too. Another, I don't know why, yeah, I guess was built for IG Farben building for Farben in Frankfurt, 1931. And now is the Goethe University. Then maybe Goethe did deserve such a huge, it's like again a citadel, a city. Look at it. You know, it's a massive building for a massive poet, if I would not insult Goethe with such a massive statement. Look at this. I think even Putin would have loved it. You know, but then with Putin, we have to be careful because, you know, he might soon say, this building belongs to me, it's Russian, and he will bomb it. So it's a good thing he doesn't like it, I imagine, and doesn't know about it. Hans Poelzig. I like this architect. A little mad, but I like mad people. You know, and even here there is, some tremor. You look at the facade, those shades, the materials are allowed to show some, dissent even, to have hesitations, to have dilemmas perhaps, or I don't know. It's a sign of bringing in some relativity. And I guess all these people are, going to courses or returning from courses, and all inspired by the name of the school, Goethe Universität. Not bad. So moving forward, this is in Frankfurt by Hans Poelzig, and look at the, within the so-called urban fabric, it's domineering, no, but it's in this case, let's allow a poet to be domineering too, because very often poets don't have this privilege. A huge building, yes.